All right. So we're live in the next webinar. My name is Jason, CEO and founder of Tarvent. And with me is Derek. I'll let you introduce yourself.
How's it going? One of the co-founders, also the main guy on support. So if you've reached out to us, I've definitely talked to you guys. And yeah.
All right. So let's see. So for company updates, man, from the user perspective, not seeing a lot, but there's been a whole lot. So, so from a functionality perspective, where there hasn't been too much going on, there's been little things, but not too much. But one of the major things is some performance improvements. Um, won't go into too much detail on what we were doing because it's just boring, but just doing some more performance improvements and trying to do more with less. That's just our philosophy, is trying to do more with less resources. That way, long-term projections look a lot better than what a lot of other companies do. But anyway, so we got performance improvements, we've got deliverability enhancements, or improvements, I should say, especially the Yahoo. They seem to be our nemesis lately. But we're making progress there, working with Yahoo on that, trying to get that to a point where it's acceptable. And so we're definitely making progress there. And they just tend to be a little bit of a challenge. But anyway, and then the last thing, I guess it's a company update, but yeah, our webinars. So we've been doing them once a week, every Tuesday at 10. I think we're going to kind of change the format up a little bit, because what we do normally do is talk about our blog, go over the Q&A and company updates. And so I think what we're going to do is kind of change it up a little bit, and just do a once a month blog. All right, let me try that again. We're going to do once a month webinar, still be live, still jump in, ask questions, and we'll through chat or whatever. And so you'll still be able to do that, but we're going to focus a lot more on a monthly basis instead of every week. And we'll see how that goes. If you guys don't like that idea and you think it's horrible and you want us to keep with weekly, then let us know. Otherwise, that's kind of the plan. And so we're going to kind of change things up just a little bit here, give us a little bit more time to hopefully make some other videos, more about the platform itself and how to use it and how to leverage it to your advantage. So we're kind of mixing things up a little bit, see how it works, see if you guys like it, see if you don't. If you don't, let us know. And so with that, anything else you want to add on updates?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. We're still making those UI enhancements to make your life in Tarvent easier. We're just trying to do our best to reduce the amount of clicks you guys need to do certain activities or just actions within Tarvent. So that's just another thing we're working on, but that's kind of a continuous thing from last week. But yeah, just want to let you guys know we're still working on it. So we want to make our platform as easy as possible. That's our goal. So
yeah, we've definitely gotten a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot. We get feedback on it. And it definitely is extremely helpful to us, because we can't read everybody's minds. Sometimes I wish we could. Most of the time, I'm glad we can't. Yeah. So if you guys have any suggestions, which I'm sure you have a ton, let us know. That's the only way we know what you're thinking, and we can make changes. So with that, the blog the blog is out. We always push our blogs on Thursdays. So the latest blog is The Dark Side of Automation. And Derek, since you post that, I'll let you kind of go over, let me know what you think about that and what you want to touch on, then we can get to the Q&A.
Yeah. So, the title kind of calls it out pretty well. It's the dark side of automation. So it kind of just goes over things you want to avoid when you're automating stuff or just automating your marketing campaigns, mainly to just not come off like you're a robot, and mainly just to, this kind of reemphasizes a lot of the blogs that we posted in the past couple of weeks, just with automation, you got to personalize your campaigns. So if you're sending out a generic campaign or your automations are super generic, which in some cases it might be okay, But in other cases, you want to make sure that your marketing experience or your automation experience for the customer is personalized towards them. Because if it becomes something that's routine or something that's repetitive, then they're going to lose interest because it doesn't relate to what they're interested in. So the blog kind of just goes through certain things you should avoid in your automation to avoid that repetitiveness, avoid that robotic feeling to your automations. And really, it also dives a little bit into the personalization aspect of it. But I mean, if I were to take one thing from this blog, it's just kind of the obvious of automation. You want to use automation, but you don't want to make it feel like it is automation to the end user. So you really just got to focus on personalizing those campaigns, personalizing the experience within your journey. I think it was last webinar, maybe the webinar before it, we kind of went into using tags to create a different journey per contact going through it. So based on a link they click or something else they do within the system, you can tag them and send them down a completely different path than another contact that may have clicked a different link or did something else within the system. So yeah, I think just overall, personalize your animations. Don't sound robotic. Don't be super repetitive. It's going to take a little bit. It's a little bit of an investment to get those automations set up, but once you do, it will help convert those contacts a lot better than just if you were to do something generic.
Yeah. So if it sounds like an email that applies to everybody, it's going to probably be a little bit on the robotic side. So if you make it personalized to each individual person that's getting that email, it's going to have a much better conversion rate. So that's something we have to take our own advice because we're not perfect in that. I can actually think of a couple of emails that we sent out that we could do a better job at. So, we're all in this together. We're building the app. That doesn't mean that we are the absolute best at marketing. I know some people tend to believe that that's what it is, but we're all in this together and we're all learning. So with that, just keep that one thing in mind. If you receive that email, does it sound like they're talking directly to you, or can that email apply to just about anybody? If it does apply to just about anybody, well, then maybe it's not as personalized as you could do it. But anyway, so all right, so let's get to some of the questions here. We've got not too bad, decent number of questions here. So the first question, and I think Derek, I'll go ahead and let me get your screen up here, 'cause that way we can kind of show some things on this. And all right, so with that, then the first question is, how can I add Google Fonts to my account?
Okay.
I guess we worked on this a while ago now, but it's still pretty fresh in my mind as far as how we did this. But.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's really two ways you can do it. I'll just go through the account method just for simplicity. So if you go, if you didn't see what I did, so if you go into the main menu, click your account, it'll bring you to the account screen, and then you'll see a page called fonts. So in here is where you can manage what Google fonts are available. And so basically what happens when you add one of these fonts to your account, it basically just tells the editor what Google fonts are available to use. And so the only thing I'd want to add on to this question is just not all email clients support Google fonts, or web fonts is the more technical term. So if you use a Google font, some email clients like older versions of Outlook or Yahoo, there's a couple of email clients that don't support web fonts. So just keep that in mind when you're using Google Fonts, just to send a test to make sure it looks good on the email clients. And all these have a backup font too that looks sort of similar to it. So if you put like this bitter and the email client doesn't support web fonts, then there's a backup font that looks pretty similar to this that'll display for the user. But that's just something to keep in mind when you're using Google Fonts. And this only applies to emails. For surveys, forms, or landing pages, that's all fine because that's all in the browser, not in an email client. So, and then, yeah, it looks like I might be a little too far zoomed out. My bad. So there we go. So yeah, that's how you add Google Fonts. So just come into your account, go to fonts, search what Google font you want to add, click add, and then it'll be available in the editors.
Yeah, so this isn't like an integration where you have to log into Google or connect it with our with Tarvent in any way. We already have that connection, but because there's thousands and thousands of Google fonts, we're not going to load all of those because we want the system to perform well. We want the editor to render correctly and fast. And so that's why we have this where all the Google fonts are available, but it's up to you to add the fonts that you want to use for your account. And you can add them here. You can also do it in the editor as well. So here's just a little bit cleaner, and then it's available all throughout your account. So, all right, next question here. We use Tarvent to follow up with new clients who sign up for our service. What is being done to help make sure email campaigns land in the inbox instead of spam?
Yeah, I guess I can take this one over. So we do a couple things on our side. So first, we require that your sending domain has the correct authentication records. So that's when you went and added your sending domain, those records for the, I don't think I remember, but there's like DKIM, DMARC, and then there's a CNAME record in there. So basically all those DNS records that you added for your sending domain is to have the proper authentication when sending an email from that domain. So that's the first step we do. The second step we do is we have a lot of automated reports built into our system so that if there's a problematic account, an account sending out email they shouldn't, or an account sending out spam, then we get alerted right away so that we can suspend that account to prevent damage to the IPs. But from our side, that's what we're doing. And then, but for an email to land in spam, there's several factors. I don't want to put the blame on us or on you, but they're both players have part of why it lands in spam. So it could be due to IP reputation, which is what we handle. So with those email authentication records and suspending those bad accounts, but it also could be due to content. So if you link to a website that's on a blacklist, or your sending domain is on a blacklist, or you have a bad image to text ratio, that could all lead to an email landing in spam as well. So it varies per ISP. We wish that ISPs would give us a list of everything that they use to classify an email as spam, but unfortunately we don't. So we can just go based off of the industry recommendations of what categorizes an email as spam, and the things I had mentioned previously is kind of what leads to that. So, but from our side, yeah, it's really that email authentication and managing IP reputation to make sure only email that should be going over our system is. So.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that obviously spam reports. So if you're sending out and you're getting a bunch of spam reports in, guess what? You're going to get flagged for spam, and then your emails are going to start going to the spam folder. So there's a lot of things that you can do to help yourself, and then there's a lot of things that we are doing as well. We're getting more and more strict just because we have to, but we're getting more and more strict on trial accounts and different things that people are doing within our system and putting some limits on those. That's been incredibly, but there's a few more things we're really holding off on doing on purpose because we just don't want to impact the user experience. Some of our competitors do some different things that we're looking at potentially doing, but we're holding off on it for right now. We're seeing if we can maintain where we're at and keep things going in the right direction. So without having to make it even more difficult to send out your initial emails or whatnot. So, but anyway, make sure your content's good, and we'll do our part on our side, making sure our IPs and domains and whatnot are all respected and have a good reputation. So anyway, all right. So next question here: can I set up a domain that has an existing MX record? So I can handle this one. So when you set up a domain, yes, you can set up a domain for sending that has an MX record. However, you're not going to be able to get all the badges in our system. And what I mean by that is you'll be able to use your domain with an MX record. You'll set up your DKIM records, but you won't be able to add that one last record. It's a CNAME record that tells our system that we can send email. So they're trying to leave this without it being too technical, but basically if you add in this other record, then when we send it out, we've talked in the past about there being two from addresses. There's the mail from, which in like regular snail mail or regular mail that goes through the post office, you have the from on the outside of the envelope. That would be the mail from. And then you have the from on the inside of the envelope in the letter, and that could be from dad, so it could be whatever it wants. So that mail from, that's the important piece. So if you have an MX record that you're using for your corporate mail or whatnot, then you won't be able to set up this custom CNAME record because there's going to be a conflict. And so because you don't set up that CNAME record, then we can't have the outside of the envelope, that mail from or the return path, we can't set that up to use your domain. So you're only going to have DKIM, and DKIM and SPF are still good to go. In DMARC, you'll just have to set it to none for the policy, and that way we can send mail out. If you have an MX record for your domain, let's say your domain is test.com and you have an MX record, then we suggest setting up a subdomain. That's the technical term, but don't set it up as a subdomain with your ISP. You'll just, in our system, you may put like e.test.com or email.test.com or updates.test.com, whatever you want that alias in the beginning to be, or that subdomain. You'll set that up, and in your ISP or wherever you manage your DNS, you'll just add the records that we have in there. Don't set up a subdomain within your ISP, just add the records in, and that'll do kind of the same thing. Technically, it's a subdomain, but some ISPs will create a whole subdomain website for you, and we don't want that because they add some other records that impact that. So anyway, if you want all the badges, you want DMARC set as reject, which is the best way to go for the DMARC policy. You want everything, you want all the badges, and you want the best deliverability possible. Make sure to use an alias in front of your domain or subdomain. So then you can add all the records in and you're good to go, and it won't have any impact on your MX record, which controls how mail gets routed. So we won't have any issues with that. Some people run into issues and don't understand why they can't put the CNAME in when they have the MX record, and it just causes all sorts of issues. So hopefully that makes sense. Super technical. If you have any questions on that, just make sure to reach out to support and we can walk you through that, look at your DNS and how it's set up, and we can go from there. But all right, can a contact manage their groups in unsubscribe form? So you have an unsubscribe form. And I'll go over the next two, Derek, and I'll let you take on the last one here, because these next two kind of go hand in hand. So
do you want to share my screen, because then I can give a visual to
that's good. Yeah. So let me do that quick. All right. So I'm going to actually answer these in different orders. So there's another question. What's the difference between public and private groups? So in our system, we have both public and private groups. So private group it's pretty easy to understand. Both of them are fairly easy to understand. They're basic concepts in the sense that a private group, you name it whatever you want. You can name it just for an extreme example. If you want to say, I hate these people, which I don't suggest you having that group, but if you want, you could put that group in, you mark it as private. Nobody will ever see it. So that group is internal to you. Nobody will ever see that group whatsoever. Then you have public groups. Public groups are groups that people can see. Now, how those get used are kind of like interests. So some of our competitors, they'll have a question like an interest question, and we think it's a little bit different and a little bit strange how they do it. It's kind of complicated, but anyway, you could set up these interest groups and you can ask that question and people can check a box. In our system, the same thing applies, but you create public groups. So when you create a public group, that's now a group that on a profile page or on an unsubscribe page, they can see all those public groups. If you put in the group question, then they can see all the public groups and they can manage which public groups they're in. They won't be able to see the list of private groups. They'll only be able to see those public. So that's why I want to draw the distinction between public and private, because nobody will ever see the private except for your internal people that have access to that audience. So there's that. So now the previous question can I manage or can a contact manage their groups in an unsubscribe form? Now, why would you do that? The main reason you do that is because you want them to, you'd prefer that they opt out of a group rather than completely unsubscribe. If they completely unsubscribe, you just lost an audience member. Whereas if they just unselect certain interest groups or certain interest or certain public groups that they don't want to get email for, a lot better because you still keep them in your system as an audience member that you can communicate with in the future. So that's the whole goal, is trying to get them to select which groups they want to be part of instead of just completely unsubscribing. So you set up your groups, you set up public groups, and you can think of them as interest groups, or however you them. But once you do that, then you add the question. And so in here, Derek's got a page that shows up that just kind of or a form. This is an unsubscribe form. And so he added the group questions. So Derek, if you click on the form and maybe remove the group question and add it back in, just so people can kind of see, where that question is. So if I go in, you can add it, and there's a group question. So that group question, all you have to do is select that and click next, and then you can put a question text at the top. That'll just, maybe it says select what interests you have or update your interests. And then you can do a couple settings on there and you add that to your form. And once you add that to your form, then they can now control what interest groups or what groups they're part of. And hopefully with that, they will no longer unsubscribe, or you'll get less people unsubscribing and more people managing those public groups that they're a part of. And then in your marketing efforts, you just need to make sure that you do your segmentation so you only include the interest groups that the email pertains to. That way you kind of adhere to, to the what the expectations of the contact are. So that's how you would manage, or you would allow contacts to manage the groups. Now, like I said, this group question is available. Actually, it's in 3 places. So you could do it on your sign up form. You could do it on your profile update forms, and then you can also do it on your unsubscribe form. So you could do it in all 3. The only other thing with that is there's another question for unsubscribe. So on your unsubscribe form, you do have the option of not allowing them to actually unsubscribe. You can allow them just to modify the groups, and that's it. So you can have the group question, not the unsubscribe question. Or you can have the group and the unsubscribe question. Now, if you have both in there and they say unsubscribe from all emails, then it doesn't matter what they set their groups to. They're going to be marked as unsubscribed, and they'll no longer receive email from our system. So that's how that question works. So just so you understand, that there's the unsubscribe all, or unsubscribe from all emails, or there's also where you can update your groups that you're a part of. But hopefully that makes sense and kind of controls how that's handled for a customer. So with that, the next question is, I submitted an unsubscribe form, but the contact wasn't opted out. Why? And the reason for that in this particular example was because they didn't have the unsubscribe question there. All they had was the groups. So they unchecked all the boxes. So there's no groups that they were a part of, and they clicked the button. But because the unsubscribe all question wasn't included, all that it did was remove them from all the groups, but they were still an active contact in the system. The other way that could happen is if you do have the question in there, but the user doesn't select the unsubscribe from all emails, they just uncheck all the group boxes. So we might put in some logic or let you control that a little bit better to say, if they uncheck all the boxes, then automatically check the unsubscribe from all emails. So that's something we're looking at. If that's a feature you'd like, let us know. It'd be great to have that feedback. There's always it's nice to have all the flexibility, but then when you're new to the system, it's extremely overwhelming to have all that flexibility because you don't it's just a lot to comprehend at one time. So it's a balancing act for us. But anyway, kind of beat that one to death, but hopefully that makes a lot of sense on how the unsubscribe works. We're trying to give you options, and more so, we're trying to help you retain as many customers as possible or as many contacts as possible by giving them the option to just opt out of a group or an interest group rather than completely unsubscribing from your audience, which then you lose a contact. So, Derek, did I miss anything on that one?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
All right.
I think there's one more question. Just how does a forward to friend form work?
Oh, yeah, I skipped that one. All right.
Yeah, I can go over that one quick. So yeah, forward to friend form. I'll just go into one of these forms. You can see what it looks like. So basically, a forward to friend form just allows a recipient of the email to forward that email to one of their friends. So forward friend. So if you include the link to a forward to friend email or to a forward to friend form, gosh, that's a lot of F's to pronounce in one sentence. But anyways, so if you include a link to that in your email, then they'll go to and they click it, then they'll go to a form that looks like this. So it has a list of name and email. And once you go to this form, you can add more recipients. It's not limited, just one. So you can put name, email, a note to the friend, and then your information. So your name and email. And so when they fill this out and they submit it, what will happen is that an email will be sent to the people that were specified in this first question. And in that email, all we'll have is a link to the view online version of the email. So we won't forward the email to their inbox. We'll send them an email that has your note to them, and then they can click a link in that email to view it online. So that's kind of how the forward to friend form works, just that flow. So yeah,
With that, I was just going to say, with that, one of the questions that we get asked is, hey, can I get a list of all the email addresses that the email was forwarded to? We don't make that available. We have the information, but we don't make it available because those friends did not opt in. So technically, you should not have their email address. At least that's our view on it, is that you don't have their email address because that friend never provided it to you yet. So they didn't give you permission. And what we don't want is we don't want a friend to receive the email, you get their email address and just put it in the system without that friend opting in. So that's one thing we want to try to avoid at all costs, because we don't want our system to be used to send email to people that did not give permission, that did not provide consent. That gets into all sorts of laws with GDPR and CCPA and CAN spam and a ton of others. So we're trying to avoid all that, so that nobody has legal issues with that. So I believe with that on this, and maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but you could send this to multiple friends, correct?
Yeah. So it doesn't show it in this preview, but when you go to this form, there'll be an add button underneath the name. So you can put in a name, email, and then click that add button, and it'll show another set of text boxes for you to put another name and another email.
Yeah, if you're not using LastPass, you won't see that little red box there. That's just a plugin for passwords. So anyway, we're not promoting them. We're not affiliated with them, but that's what that is. So anyway, so you probably won't see that unless you're using LastPass. But it's one of the things I wish we could get rid of, but LastPass took that feature out. So kind of fun. So anyway. Let's see. And then somebody just asked, let's see, are you going to get email list validation integration? So yes. So with that, email address verification. So that's kind of a touchy subject. And the reason I shouldn't say touchy. It's not like we're not willing to talk about it, but it's one of those things where we send permission-based email. So if somebody gives you their email address, it should already be verified. So it should, that is something that should be verified because the users who entered that email address. However, in some cases, you might have all their information, but you don't have their email address. And so you're going to use a third-party service to take addresses and merge it together and do an email append and get email addresses. And then you might send them out an email and request permission, and only send them one. So in some cases, email validation is okay to do. With that, yes, we do integrate. And how we do is we integrate through Make and Zapier and many of the other integrators. So we don't have native integration with those, but we do have integration through Zapier and Make and Albato and plenty of other services that we have in our integrations area. So you can use any of those and do email address verification through those platforms. And those integrate great with Tarvent. So that would be something that maybe your form, you get the form and then you verify it and you add a tag into ours to let you know that that email address was verified. Or, the tag could say it's verified or not verified, depending on the result from that integration. So hopefully that answers your question. But there's a lot of email verification platforms out there that Zapier, Make, and Integrately, and Pably, and there's a ton, but there's a bunch that so yes, through those third-party integrators, you can definitely do that.
So and I think
go ahead.
Just adding on to contexts that are new within Tarvent, the best way to avoid having email addresses that don't exist is to use the double opt-in method. So if you enable double opt-in in your audience, I'll just show it here since I have my screen up. But anyway, so if you enable double opt-in, then they have to confirm their subscription. And if they don't, they'll just be stuck as pending. So you won't be able to send to them anyways. But that's the best way for new contacts. And honestly, another reason we haven't really explored doing a lot of native integrations with those email verification services is because it attracts a certain type of customer a lot of times, mainly cold emailers. So cold emailers will come in, use a list verification service, get the email addresses that are valid, and then try to send through our system to email addresses that never opted in. And so the easier we make it for an email verification service to add contacts into Tarvent, it's the more likely it is to get cold emailers to try to use our system, which is completely against our terms of service. But yeah, I mean, we've definitely talked about it, and those are just some of the concerns we have. But yeah.
So something to think about. That's one of the things where it's a balancing act. We want to make sure that we have good deliverability, and we don't want cold email going through. And with that native integration, that's going to allow that. So anyway, hopefully you understand that and that makes sense. But that's all the questions we have for today. So with that, as always, want to make sure you remember that we do have an affiliate program. We love our affiliates. We're wanting to help them out in any way, shape, or form. So once you log in, you can go up to your little icon at the top or your little image and become an affiliate. And with that, you will be able to start earning money for every person that you refer to Tarvent. So anywhere from 20 up to 30% for the life of the account. There's no cap. We will pay you that percentage for the life of the account. So it's a great system to use, and we always tell everybody we are willing to help out in any way, shape, or form to get you selling and referring accounts. So you're an extension of our team as an affiliate, and so we treat you as such and do everything we can. We please subscribe and like on whatever platform you're looking at us on. Please make sure you do that. It lets us know that you do like what we're doing, and it also allows you to get notifications when our next webinar is up. So please do that. And then as usual, we have our form at tarvent.com/webinar. So you can go to that form. You can ask questions there. You can ask through our support system. You can send us an email. You could do whatever way you can connect with us, social media or whatever. Ask a question. We'll make sure to add that in. Then let's see. We've got our social media platforms. They're all over the place. So social media, there's a ton of them, and we try to have a presence on all of them. So whatever channel you're looking at, we're there. So please like us there and connect with us on social platforms. Otherwise, as I mentioned before, we're going to be changing up our webinar a little bit and going to monthly. So our next webinar is going to be on July 1st. It'll be the first Tuesday of every month. And hopefully we're going to have a lot more updates. We're not really going to go into the blogs. We really hope you guys like our blogs and continue to visit. And, we have a bunch of our tracking stuff to let us know if what we're doing provides value. But anyway, so our next webinar will be July 1st. If you don't like that and you like the weekly, let us know. Otherwise, I think that's about it, Derek, unless I missed something.
No, I think that covers it.
All right. So with that, thank you for watching the webinar and supporting us. We're going to do everything we can to support you. And until next time, have a great week.
Yeah, thank you.